Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am Tamara Johnson Shealey. It is Friday, December 27th. It is the end of the year. OMG. Let me see where my trusty co-host is. There he is.
Here I am. Hi.
Good morning, David.
Good morning.
Oh, David, I've been, I have a sick kid. I have been moving and shaking and moving too fast. I'm tired on this last Friday in December. How are you? Merry 2 days after Christmas.
I'm
How
doing
are you, David?
what?
How are you?
I said I'm doing fine. I'm really um, doing okay. Did you have a nice Christmas?
Did, but I have a sick kid
Uh,
that that doesn't listen, and he's out with no jacket on, and then getting sicker, and now he's just sick, and it's all night. I hear him coughing and sneezing and barking. It's just awful.
yeah.
How was your Christmas?
Happy Kwanzaa. Yeah.
Happy Kwanzaa. How was your Christmas, David?
Mine was very quiet and went out, and it was really a nice day. So I went out, took a long walk, and kind of walking and running, and that was about it. So
Oh, you just enjoyed the holiday season
yeah,
quietly, huh, David?
yep.
So on Wednesday, David, I did my campaign update, which I always do every Wednesday at 8 p.m. from 8 to 8:30, just to kind of give people that are following me to the opportunity to kind of hear the intricacies of what's happening inside of the campaign. But this
Yeah.
Wednesday, I had a guest from Chicago, ADOS Chicago, join me, Arthur Ward. Thank you, Arthur, for joining me. And we had a Black Christmas. So
Oh.
today, I wanted to have a white Christmas with you.
Yeah, well, um, that's a bit difficult given my heritage and the fact that I'm an atheist. So,
Oh my gosh. Now, see, Arthur, my guest on Wednesday, was a Black atheist. And now
uh,
today,
yeah,
you,
not,
David, you're an atheist too. Now I
yeah,
got a white atheist to deal
yeah,
with.
not, uh, given what I know about the African American ADOS community, there are quite a few Black atheists that are out there. So,
Yeah,
you
I'm
know,
finding out, David, that there are more Black atheists than
mhm,
I know.
all throughout the history of the African American movement. And of course, there were Muslims as well, lots and lots of Muslims.
Mhm.
So, um, the Black community is diverse, you know, and it's, that's something that particularly European Americans have to keep in mind. It's not just the church, in the Black.
Not just the church.
Yeah,
And even Black people, we have to keep that in mind too, David. So when he and I were talking, I was so surprised. I was like, I wasn't surprised. I knew, but it was like, it's just it's different when you're Black. Like I grew up in the church. Like I know the church. Like
yeah,
from birth, I grew up in the church. So to meet Black people that don't have that same experience, it is different. Not so much with white people, because I've met a lot of white people along the way that don't have that experience. But Black people, it's a little different.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's true of people who are in the uh, faith community that I belong to, which is Unitarian Universalists, and Unitarians are a lot of
Faith
them.
community, start there. Like you said, you described it a faith community. So
Yeah.
what do you have faith in if you're an atheist?
Well, you have.
Like, here's my confusion. Like, what do you have faith in if you're an atheist?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. You have faith that there is no such thing as a supreme being, and that's really kind of kind of an ironic, but I'm conceding by saying that there's no proof. There's also no disproof. This is a choice that I make to to um, to channel my spirituality through my relationships with other people, rather than through an intermediary of a supreme being of any of whatever whatever form that you think it takes. So
it's about the relationship human to human, person to person, versus a relationship with the spiritual being or God.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
And I think that that for people who are truly spiritual, and believe in God, that's how they see God, as an intermediary, as a vehicle for them to strengthen their bonds and their relationships with other human beings.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that we talked about the difference between white Christianity and Black Christianity. Black Christianity is really almost a separate religion. It overlaps to some extent with white Christianity, but a lot of the distinction I would make is between the prophetic tradition, which runs deep in the Black church, and this kind of fundamentalist Christian right view of religion, which is not all evangelicals. Fundamentalists are a subset of evangelicals, and these are people who really believe in individual salvation. They almost have in effect, I would say, maybe I'm doing some what do you call it? I'm doing some injustice to their position, but what I see is that they have they seem to see their relationship to the Trinity,
The Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, and I think they see it almost as a contractual relationship. If they behave in a certain way, and they believe that they will go to heaven, then they will go to heaven. It's like they have a contract with God, and I think that's that's very capitalist oriented. To have that kind of transactional relationship.
So you're saying the fundamentalists, you believe, have this contractual relationship with God, as if I'm a good person and
I've got a deal.
I got a deal. I'm gonna go to heaven because I'm a good person.
Yeah. And you behave in a certain way, and you have a certain set of beliefs and values that you don't question. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's a rather brittle and rigid position to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Fundamentalists are required to believe in the literal word of the Bible as the word of God, and what that ends up doing, I think ultimately, is that because the Bible is a both in the Old and the New Testament, are these elaborate and very, very highly um, what do you call it, metaphorical, and all sorts of other things are going on. There's poetry, there's metaphor, there's myth. Uh, if you have to believe that who is it? Joshua or Moses who makes the sun stand still. That's that's that really is pretty much flying in the face of
He says religions were created by capitalist elite who enslaved humans and legalized chattel slavery using the religious beliefs they created.
Well, yeah, that part of the relationship between Protestantism and slavery is really really important, because in Catholic Christianity, after the Protestant Reformation begins in the 16th century, 1517 is the Luther nailing the 95 Theses to the church door of the Wittenberg Cathedral. There were all sorts of Protestant sects, and they challenged the church authority, the hierarchy of the church authority. In some ways, it was a real revolution, but against the power of the Catholic Church, the monolithic power of the Catholic Church. But at the same time, they also the Catholic Church was anti-slavery, and so that's one of the reasons that Protestantism became so racialized, is that if African Americans, enslaved Africans brought to the continental United States, converted to Christianity, what were you going to do with them? I mean, if they were Christians, they were free.
And that's why that's why there was a slave Bible, and then there was their Bible.
Well, I mean, there were a lot of things. The churches were integrated up until the Reconstruction. After emancipation, churches were integrated, and the messages that were taught to the bond servants were the messages of the Christianity of the slave owners, right? Because it was illegal in many states, if not most of them, to teach enslaved people to read, it was very little there was little access on the part of African American enslaved people to the Bible, right? And it's not surprising that that a lot of the people who led slave revolts in this country were literate and read the Bible. And that's where they found the Moses story, which is almost entirely myth.
That's because you say it's
not historical. It's just not historical. But they found that story and they said, well, what have they been telling us, in these churches where the slave owners were sitting in the front pews, and we were all in the back, in the back of the back benches, of the church.
Christianity, I'm spiritual, like, Christmas, Christian, I'm spiritual. I was raised Baptist in a Baptist church, and I have this funny, well, it's not funny, but I have a story I'm gonna share. When I was a little girl, probably, I was probably 5, 6, 7, 8. I know I was really little, but I was always really observant. Like I was quiet. Most people know me from back home. They'll tell you I was really a quiet little girl, but I'm telling you, I was absorbent and I was studying everything. So we were in church and I was sitting next to my mom, and we always sat like on this certain, this certain part of the church on these pews. So I remember exactly where I was sitting, and it was a picture of a white Jesus right behind the pastor, or this picture of this white Jesus kneeling on a rock. And that picture always kind of, I won't say disturbed me, but I had questions because, they were always teaching about Jesus is God. And I was confused as a little girl, because I was thinking, and I remember asking my mom, I said, well, if Jesus is God, who is he praying to? And I remember my mother looked at me and she just turned her head. She never answered. So I always had questions about religion. I never questioned my spirituality. And that is something very different for me. And even now, with raising my kids and as an adult, I am much more focused on my spirituality versus religion. And getting involved, like Christmas to me, I don't celebrate Christmas like traditionally. I'm glad it's Christmas. The kids are out of school. We get to spend time together. My kids are home, but that's all it is for me.
Yeah. Well, I think that you're really bringing up a very important issue. And historically, there's a lot of people on the Christian right who claim that the United States is a Christian nation. And when you look, and they claim that the founding fathers, and of course they were all fathers, right? On top of everything else, and many of them, believed in Christianity. But if you look at the actual, thinking, the writings of these people, like Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson did not believe that Jesus Christ was part of a Trinity. He believed that Jesus was a historical human figure, and that's true of many others. Many of whom were Unitarians. Many of the northern American Revolution generation were Unitarianism was the religion of the elites in the Boston area in particular, and they did not believe in the divinity of Jesus. So go figure that, because they were Protestants as far as they were concerned, and clearly, anybody who is a Baptist today would say, well, that's not Christianity. And Unitarians today would say that they're not. A big proportion of Unitarians would say that they are Christian, and they have that set of beliefs. But there's also an equal number, probably 20% Christian, 20% atheist, and yet African Americans, who are my closest friends among Unitarians, say that they still have an emotional connection to the Black church, the music, the ritual, the sense of identity that comes out.
Well, let me speak to that, David, with our relationship with the Black church. I have a high regard. Black church is, for me, I believe, first of all, let me go back a step and then I'm gonna bring it forward. I totally believe in God. Yeah. I totally believe in God. I am sold out. Like you can't I know there's a God. Like I know there is a God. Like I'm clear about that. The stories of the Bible, I believe they are stories. I don't know. I can't say yay or nay. All I know is I believe the stories because they have so much meaning. And my personal relationship with the Black church is I know that's a place of healing and it's a place of hope for Black people. It is our foundation. It is what saved us. It is what, it's how we've been able to endure all the years in this country is our Black church. So I have a high regard for the Black church. I'm gonna tell you, in 2014 and 2016 and 2018, when I campaigned, I did not. And people were like, why aren't you coming to the Black church? I did not go to the Black church and campaign. I didn't go to any churches and campaign. I was invited to one church, and I went to that church only because I was invited. And I didn't feel comfortable even then. I did not campaign at the churches. I did not feel comfortable going to the churches, waving my hand like, hey, I'm, for votes, when I know that there's people here that's hurt, they're hurting. They need something from the church. And I never felt comfortable doing it. So I can just tell you, Black people, when it comes to the Black church, I can even say I'm protective of the Black church.
Well, I don't want to get into the issues here, because I have a connection.
And you're an atheist.
I really
it's not your lane.
What did you say?
And you're white and you're an atheist, and this is not your lane.
Yeah. Well, but on the other hand, I do have an emotional connection to not just the songs of the civil rights movement, but to the spirituals that are behind many of those songs. So I do feel like there's something there that's inspiring and moving, deeply moving.
We'll play that again. There's something there that's inspiring and deeply moving. What is there, David?
The something that's
something. What is the something?
Well, for me, it's an emotional connection, an emotional.
But it might be God, David.
Yeah, I respect you for your beliefs. You just have to, give me that same courtesy. All that I'm saying is that at the time, in the mid to late 50s and 60s, there were an awful lot of Black ministers, in Black churches in the South, who were very, very much against the civil rights movement, right? Because they saw it as disruptive, and they had worked out their relationship with the white power structure. So we have to really keep in mind that there were.
They saw integration as destructive because of what it did do was destroy our Black communities. Well,
that's a different point that I'm making, but I acknowledge that absolutely as well, that was the case. Certainly, in the education system, and there are a lot of arguments, including Derek Bell, who's died about 10 years ago, but was a Harvard law professor who wrote a dozen books, including Faces at the Bottom of the Well, and it's another book that I read, who says that integration. He wrote a book at the 50th anniversary of the Brown v. Board of Education decision, saying that
on the table, your camera's shaking.
Questions that whether Brown was the right decision or not. So integration has done a lot of damage, but for many of these conservative Black ministers, it was that they had worked out, a way of surviving, in the white supremacist Jim Crow South. They were the leaders. So
go back to your point where you were saying how the right, the fundamentalist right, and their control, because I want us to keep us on topic with the Democrats and religion and Republicans and religion.
Well,
and I'm gonna bring Egberto in a little early here. I see him in the lobby, and I think he has a different perspective too. I can't wait to.
Yeah,
Egberto. Wow, David is brave to talk to you about religion. David has more courage than I do.
I was like, okay, let me bring Egberto.
Berto, can you imagine Tamara as being this quiet, shy little girl? I mean, that never spoke. I mean, that's
No. Tamara is not that shy little girl. If that was a shy little girl, she sure has blossomed.
I have
absolutely.
I cannot wait to hear. I can't wait for you to share your perspective on religion and Christmas. Because David is an atheist, and I did a broadcast on Wednesday. I do my campaign updates every Wednesday at 8 p.m.
Uh-huh.
And I had a Black atheist on my broadcast. So, Egberto, where do you fall in the spectrum?
I am not an atheist, and there are different levels of deism. But I mean, I am not an atheist. I am a humanist. I accept the fact that I am dumb. I don't know, about God. I don't know the intricacies of God. I do believe that whatever it is that started this Big Bang that is my God. In other words, that is a thing that created that created or instantiated or whatever all things. I don't know what the hell it is, but that is I am not.
That is such a safe space, Egberto.
No, but let me tell you why. Let me tell you why I took that space. Okay.
Tell us.
And with a lot of respect to David, I think atheism to some extent is a level of what's the word that I like to use?
It's too concrete for you.
Yeah, it's too concrete in that I think it's like I know too much, right? And I think Christianity is the same. I think Christianity and atheism is the same when it comes to the same. Well, yeah. Tamara is going to say, well, Jesus Christ came and died on the cross for us. And David is going to say, Jesus, that's a historical fact. And let me show you all the scientific reasons why everything that you read in the Bible is really not true.
You're going to
ride. And then I'm going to come in and say, I grew up a Christian in a Baptist, first in a Catholic church. Then my mother moved me to a Baptist church. Then I came to the United States of America and got into a new wave church called Maranatha. And I broke off from I was a church going guy, and I broke off. Good morning, Shealey. And I broke off from the church when I said we were marching on the campus of the University of Texas. And I went to the pastor and I said, Pastor, we need to join. I was in a group called the South African Liberation Action Committee. And we were marching on campus. And I'm like, well, you got to come and join us because this is the right thing to do. And this is what Jesus would want. And my pastor sat me down and he said, Egberto, let me tell you something. Do you know that Jesus never spoke out against slavery? And I'm like, not a chance. Come on, we're talking about Jesus now. And then he said, Jesus said, honor thy masters. And I'm like, holy crap. That can't be the Jesus that I've been praying to from Catholic church to Baptist church and now Maranatha. Are you guys crazy? I went and read the whole damn New Testament and the darn pastor was right. So when I read that, I said, okay, that was my time to leave the church. And I left the church and never looked back and became a humanist and said, all I care about was human beings. I care about Tamara and I care about David. Nothing more.
All this light that's shining on me right now.
What's that? I see the glow.
You see all this light that's shining on me right now. I am a believer, and I know there is God.
Listen, that's cool. And I was laughing. I mean, I couldn't stop laughing because you're interrupting David and saying, David, you are an atheist. You're a white guy that's an atheist, and we're talking about the black church. And I'm like, man, David's a cool guy, man. I mean, he's like, Tamara is telling him this stuff, and David is still in her skin. David is still, well, and Tamara, give me that kind of, I gave you your space. Give me my space, Tamara. And it was great. Let me tell you something. I was having so much fun watching you guys.
Well,
because I knew you were somewhere in the midst of it. I knew you wasn't on. Well, I thought you was closer to his side. You just telling me right now you're riding up the middle.
No, it's not. I hate the word middle. Please don't use middle. No.
You're just whatever. It's basically you're saying I'm going to be whatever I need to be when the time comes. I just need to be ready.
No, not that. I don't know. I honestly don't. I don't believe in I don't, let me tell you what I don't believe in. I don't believe that Jesus was some sort son of a mythical God. I don't believe in the God that says I'm a jealous God, because I figure if a God created all this stuff, how could you possibly be jealous? You'd look at us, if we're doing something silly like worshiping idols or whatever. If I were a God, I would be saying like, look at those silly people. I am, So I think if you look at the way the Bible, in my opinion, if you look at the way the Bible talks about God, I think it belittles that which created everything, because it makes a God with all the flaws that man has. He's jealous. He's all these different things. He needs somebody to be saying, "Oh God, have mercy on me and blessed be unto thee."
Let me at least correct you that when they talk about him being a jealous God,
yes,
interpreting that in the spirit and not in the literal and not in the natural.
Okay.
Him being a jealous God is about you not serving another God or anything, money, other people, anything over him. That is just more of an analogy to say, look, don't serve anything over me because you're gonna lose. Look at all this light shining on me over here. Like
you're surrounded, girl. But I guess what I'm trying to say is the God that I see written about in the Bible is so much of a patriarchal guy, in my opinion. And to me, all the sins that we see in this guy, in the man, is what we see in the Bible for God. And that's why the man has been, in my opinion, has been able to do all the things that he does, because he is the representation of God. All the flaws that we see man has, they done put it on God. My God is perfect, man. He created the molecules and all that kind of stuff, So I'm not down the middle.
You trying to be safe. You know what, Egberto? God knows that you are in the middle. You trying to take this safe space that, okay, God, if you real, I'm gonna be right. If you not real, I'm gonna be right. It's either you believe or you don't, Egberto. It ain't no gray area. And you trying to create this space for yourself.
Do I treat you right, and do I treat David right? I just want to be good by people. That's all I care about, human beings.
David just described that as fundamentalist.
Oh, really?
No, that's completely the opposite of what I was saying about fundamentalism. Fundamentalism is, I think that it would be better for us to think about some of the politics, that are involved. I mean, all religion in the modern period, well, going back all the way back to the time of the Old Testament, which was written down probably in the 6th century before the Common Era, BCE. Those religions that emerged at that time were props for patriarchy. That was one of the main considerations is to establish the dominance of men over women.
I think that was Egberto's point about patriarchy. Is that where you were going?
Yeah, I honestly think so. If you look at even the Black Baptist Church, I had to write a piece when in Houston we had a law called HERO. It was about I don't remember what HERO stands for. Houston Equal Rights Amendment. That's what it was. And it was to protect everybody included. But the reason that the black ministers came out against it is they got into an alliance with the evangelical white ministers in Houston to get this bill put down. So the thing about it is those white evangelical ministers want nothing to do with those black ministers in town. They don't want to have anything to do with the policies that those guys stand for, yet they got into an alliance and to do that. So I really went on the radio and hammered all the black preachers in Houston, because my thought process is Once a black person, a Latino person, an Asian person shows any form of discrimination against any other identity, it opens the white population, which is still the majority in general, to say, well, we just share the same proclivity, the same ills that you share. You discriminate against them because there's something about them you don't like. There's something about you we don't like. So, I mean, I thought that they set a terrible precedence. But above and beyond, I told my daughter one time, my daughter is in church, and I said, please ask your preacher why it is that, or why is it, or whichever one's correct, that all the people who run the church have penises, and all the people who work in the church are generally women, because you don't find a whole lot of black men doing the kind of stuff in the black church that these black women are doing. And these women, just like these women are they're the backbone of the Democratic Party, they're also the backbone of the church, and they're the backbone of a lot of stuff. And what drives me, and this drives me deeply, not only with black women, with white women too, that they allow so much of this patriarchy to continue the way it is. So that's my beef. So I'm sorry.
And I would add to that the whole fundamentalist Christian right, which I really distinguish from evangelical Christianity, is really driven by the in the abortion issue, which is something that has been driving them for the last 40 years or so.
Yeah.
That the abortion issue, which for Protestants was never an issue before there was an election in Kansas in the late 70s, early 80s. It was always seen as a backward Catholic prejudice. The abortion issue has been a mobilization that is essentially a code language for taking the decisions about pregnancy and child rearing out of the hands of women, and
the root of that here in America right now politically is that abortion is tied to the white race, to white people saving the white race, because the death rate is high and the birth rate is low.
But you know what, Tamara? It's interesting that by the same token, what's being placed in the ethos is that, abortion is genocide for black babies. In other words, as a lasso to bring in these different identities, what's being preached is that, they're using it to abort black babies. They're using it to abort Asian babies. That, I mean, the misinformation that's out there. But anyway, when you talk about abortion, I sit down. I'm not into abortion. I don't even know where life begins. I know none of that, right? But I would hope that whatever my daughter is doing, that she doesn't get pregnant where she has to have an unwanted abortion or something like that. But here's the deal, right? Who the hell am I? Are you, David? You don't have to carry this thing for nine months. You are not economically disadvantaged because you are pregnant and can't work the way you could if you were not pregnant. The gall. But here's the problem, and this is where I talk about both black women, white women, Asian women, or whatever. There are more you guys, kick our butts.
Say it, Egberto.
Yeah, kick our butts.
I think the other thing that's really astonishing about the logic, of this anti-abortion, fanaticism. I mean, there's no other really way to describe it. Is that it actually takes the decisions about child, about pregnancy and labor and all of those things out of the hands of families.
Yes.
And it puts it in the hands of the state. I mean, this is just absolutely astonishing, that there are these massive organizations of fundamentalist Christians, like what is it called? The family,
I know the Family Planet. I know which one you mean from. That's run by that hypocrite. Yes.
Yeah. You know, the family foundation or whatever
Yes.
it is, you know, and these people are so I really think that Tamara, you're talking about a much later development than Egberto is when he talks about how the anti-abortion movement has tried to rope in African American churches. Um, what's going on now is that taking
in the black church, black people don't believe in abortions. We you know, that's not something that we have our children for the most part. We do it when we have to, but we have our babies.
But you know, the thing is that that there is no class or what do you call it, a race issue. You know, in who has more abortions or less abortions than anyone else. It's really about the access, the economic.
I think that's an important concept that you're bringing in, David, because I liked there are certain things that are definitely that the result is racial, and there are certain things that the results seem racial.
Yeah.
Why white people have more abortion than access is that they're wealthier and they do have access to it. Why black people have, if I can guarantee you something, if when Tamara has her a daughter that is doing XYZ, a corporation or whatever, if she's not even going to tell Tamara that she's pregnant if she decided that what she wants to do is an abortion, because she would have had access, she would have had security, and she would have had privacy.
Yeah.
So we'll bring the abortion conversation back another day. Egberto,
Yes, ma'am. You want me to tell you?
Yes, give us a quick national update.
15 seconds. Bernie Sanders is finally getting recognized by the mainstream corporate media because he has been so solid where others have been wavering, and now they're taking him seriously. Yesterday there was an article in Politico. Please, folks, read it. It's also at my blog. But folks, thank you guys. Thank you, Tamara. Thank you, David. This was a very interesting conversation, and just watching you guys before I came on board was fun.
Yes, you know, religion doesn't have to be divisive. We just need to figure out how to have the conversation.
And you all do a great job of it. Thank you so kindly for having me.
You can find Egberto Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, YouTube, Instagram, Periscope. This man is Twitter. This man is everywhere.
She too.
Thank you, Egberto.
Bye-bye.
All right, we got a yes. Mr. Chris.
Yeah.
Is that our computer on the side?
Yeah, what's up? What's going on? Good morning, Tamara. Good morning, David.
Good morning. Good morning.
What's going on? Great conversation. I was listening in on the religion conversation and with Egberto's last words about Bernie Sanders also, which is very interesting too. You know, as we get closer to the first votes in the Democratic primary, which I think are about 38 days away.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's March 24th here in Georgia.
Okay, really? Wow. So we here in California, the last day for our primary is Tuesday, March 3rd. We actually moved our primary up this year, but we start early voting on the same day that Iowa starts voting. Okay. So we start early voting in 38 days. Okay. So for my California family, be ready, right? You know, because that is a big decision. And Bernie Sanders is actually leading here in California the last time I checked too. So I think Egberto and the crew will be happy about that.
Yeah. What's going on with the ADOS movement? And for those of you that don't know, ADOS, he's with ADOS, SoCal out there?
I'm here in Northern California. I'm here with Sacramento.
Sacramento.
Yeah, but I rep the California squad. Yeah, man.
Yes,
shout out to the SoCal team. Shout out to the LA team, San Diego team, Oakland, Bay Area team, everybody else everywhere in California. Shout out to the ADOS around the country too. Those who are within the movement, within the hashtag ADOS movement, and those who are not within the hashtag ADOS movement, but who are just ADOS, right? American descendants of slavery. Those of us whose ancestors were enslaved here in the United States by the United States. So yeah, there's a lot going on. 2019 is coming to an end. We got about 3 or 4 days left. It has been an amazing, amazing year. I think we took the political world by storm this year. I think we've got.
Just turn around and face the camera.
Oh, sure.
There you are. Yeah, you're there. We're talking to your side of yes.
Yeah, I'm like talking to me and you. Yeah, right on. This year has been an amazing year. I feel like we've really taken the political world by storm. I think we've got a lot of politicians and government, running scared and trying to figure out, and sort of scrambling in terms of how to deal with this new organic grassroots effort to force politicians at all levels of government to produce a specific targeted Black agenda, but also to support reparations for ADOS. So that is, that I think is the big takeaway from 2019. I think we planted our flag this year, and I think in 2020, folks will really be able to see what the impact and what the effect and effectiveness of this movement is, as we organize both online and offline too. So that's really the big takeaway. 2019, huge year, banner year. The movement has grown by leaps and bounds. There are more groups now in more parts of the country than ever before, and I think that will continue to grow. And if I have anything to do with it, that will continue to grow. And then we're looking forward to 2020, right? So we're looking forward to the upcoming 2020 elections. If you don't know, we're advocating for a vote down ballot strategy, which is we're going to, it seems pretty clear now that many of the candidates, if not all of the presidential candidates, Bernie Sanders included, is not going to produce a targeted specific Black agenda, and is not going to support reparations for ADOS. If that's the case, and that remains the case, then we will be voting down ballot this year. We will show up to the polls. We will vote in our local elections. We will vote in our local ballot initiatives. We will vote in our referendums. We will vote for our mayors and our city councils, and we will vote locally, right? But we will not be supporting any national candidates, especially any national Democrats who do not have a targeted specific agenda. So that's really the focus of 2020 rather, other than pursuing reparations legislation, right? So this year, I don't think this gets talked about enough, but this year, we started this year, and I remember counting by hand the number of co-sponsors on HR 40, right? And HR 40 is reparations legislation that is in the House of Representatives. It's been there for 30 years, and it hasn't moved in 30 years. And I remember starting the year counting the number of co-sponsors, the number of representatives who had put their name on the bill, saying that they support at least an effort toward reparations. And it was about 22 members in February. This December, by this month, we're over 120 co-sponsors. So that's 100 new co-sponsors on the legislation. That is a historic high. I think in its total history, the bill had maybe 40 total top co-sponsors. We more than tripled that. This year, we have also a Senate companion bill to HR 40. And we do have a bunch of revisions to HR 40. We think that the bill should be completely rewritten, and a bunch of changes made to it. But in 2020, I think we'll continue to push on this legislation and push for those changes to happen. So this was, again, a banner year, not just in terms of us showing the world that we're here, but also us actually having an effect on moving reparations legislation into the government. The government had to respond to us this year. So I think that is something that will continue in 2020 as well. And we're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to organize ADOS communities. We're going to continue to fight locally for things that matter to us in our local communities. You know, we've got a bunch of fights here in Sacramento that we're focused on. So there's a lot going on.
And that's so exciting. Like I'm just excited about this movement. I'm excited about this time in history. You know, ADOS, this is real. Like none of us, everybody that's in this, as a part of this movement, even our white allies, you know, it's just been a phenomenal year. I actually posted something last night, Chris, like at midnight. I put it out, and I'm in a lot of very progressive spaces where these are Bernie supporters. And I was a Bernie supporter in 2016. I was totally a Bernie-crat. And so I put out this post last night on the heels of us having this broadcast this morning. And my post said, fellow progressives, how do we bring Black voters into the progressive movement? One question, how do we bring Black voters into the progressive movement? And the answer needs to be, and not a few, only one person I think thus far, and I've put in a lot of groups, has gotten it right, that it has to be a specific Black agenda. It has to be something specific to us. Like you cannot ask Black voters in 2020 to come to the polls and not have tangibles. It's
good. It's going to be very hard to turn out, I think, the number of Black ADOS voters that you're going to need to win in the places that Donald Trump won by the slimmest margins. And the places that traditionally swing, right? You know, in elections, so like Ohio, Pennsylvania. But we're talking about places like, you know, Michigan and Wisconsin, right? You know, the places that Donald Trump won by the smallest margins. I actually heard Senator Nina Turner, who is, you know, one of Bernie Sanders', you know, she's very close to his campaign. She works with his campaign. I actually heard her on an interview with Tim Black, who I don't know if you're familiar with Tim Black, but I think he has the largest Black independent progressive YouTube platform. And she was on with him, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and Tim Black actually asked her about whether or not the senator has a specific Black agenda. And before I go on, the fact that question was asked is a testament to the ADOS movement. Okay, when folks are talking about where's your specific Black agenda, when folks are talking about the racial wealth gap and the lineage wealth gap, when folks are talking that kind of language, they're talking the ADOS language. Okay, because that is those are two huge cornerstones and sort of, you know, corner pieces of our agenda. But Senator Turner was asked the question by Tim Black, you know, and I have to be honest with the senator. I was disappointed in her answer. It was a rising tide lifts all boats kind of answer. Okay?
Right.
It was a trickle down, what we call trickle down liberalism kind of answer. It's, because you're at the bottom, when we do something for everybody, it will help you the most. And that is actually not how the American economy works.
Reality.
Right.
The reality. Yeah. I mean, it's. I agree with you very, very, very strongly about that. This, in the 1960s, the whole left had this argument that you could achieve fair employment through full employment, which is the same.
Exactly.
And what you end up getting is that because the rates of unemployment have been double, through the entire business cycle, and it doesn't, the rates for Blacks over whites has been double for 60, 70, well, more than 70 years. Since the end of the Roosevelt administration, since the middle of the Roosevelt administration. The only reason that Black people got industrial jobs, in the period of the New Deal, we're talking the New Deal, the Great Reform period, is that there was something called the March on Washington movement. And that is the actual predecessor for the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, and it was started by the head of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, the only black union that was in the AFL, American Federation of Labor, and A. Philip Randolph, and he mobilized and threatened Roosevelt with a march of 100,000 black people in Washington, D.C.
Right.
And it was at that point that FDR issued an executive order saying that the defense industry had to have equal access to all, in other words, a non-discrimination, an executive order. He couldn't get that through Congress. He couldn't get a law through Congress because the Congress was dominated by Dixiecrats.
Yeah.
Who the Jim Crow South, who were white supremacists. I mean, that was what they. So there's a lot of and I think this is, if you don't mind my jumping in here.
Yeah, no, please, yeah.
I think that this is part of the problem with talking about a Green New Deal, which is a massive and ambitious program, but it relies on a mythology about the New Deal, about the history of the New Deal, which is just that exactly what you're saying, that the rising tide lifts all boats, and it was not the case.
Not at all. Not at all. And we see this, and so I was disappointed with Senator Turner's response, and what you're pointing to, David, here is the fact that there's a long history of this kind of rising tide lifts all boats. Universal programs fix race-specific problems. That kind of talk. If the Democratic Party doesn't get this right in the next, I don't want to say 30 days. Okay.
It's gonna only get worse for them, because if they don't get it right in the primary, they're gonna die in the general.
Yeah, it's gonna be very hard. And let me tell you,
there it is. We will have another 4 years of Donald Trump.
Right. And there are I think part of what I love about this movement is that we've got real people on the ground, and who are organizing their communities. They're in places where the progressives don't go. They're in places where the Democrats don't go. They're talking to people that the Democrats don't talk to. I actually had the privilege of doing some census outreach last month, and there was this talk about hard to count populations. Okay, we are in the hard to count communities. Okay, we are in the places where you're going to need people to turn out if you're going to want to beat Donald Trump, especially because Donald Trump won. He lost the popular vote, but he won the Electoral College. So we're talking about states where black voter turnout can and will make a difference, like Michigan, like I said before, right? So the Democratic Party has some time, but not a lot of time. And to be honest, I'm not very confident that they're going to that the Democratic Party is going to meet the demands. And I think we will be prepared to take the action that we need to take when and if that happens. So so that's the answer to your question, right? The Democratic Party and people like Bernie, who is getting more favorable coverage. I think Egberto was right to acknowledge that there's sort of been there's a tide shifting. I don't know if that's good or bad for Bernie. Okay. Because he was doing pretty well as the underdog coming up, even though he wasn't really the underdog.
Well, I just read something that says that 30% of the Democrats who have made up their mind are Bernie supporters. So he's actually got a majority of the voters. Now that leaves there's a mass of Democrats who have not made up their mind. But of those, he has a really strong following. the thing that I think you are really pointing out, that I think is really important is that if Sanders has to solve the problem of how he talks to white working class voters about white supremacy specifically, right? And that is the test for the whole European American progressive left. Can they talk to white working class people about white supremacy in a way that turns them in the direction of solidarity? Right.
Yeah.
But David, they're not even talking to themselves first before they go out and try to talk to other white people. They need to get it right inside the progressive movement. They haven't gotten it right internally, so they can't go out and talk to nobody else. David.
Absolutely, and I think that one of the other ironies is that probably ADOS people have more contact with working class whites than a lot of white progressives do. So
that's a good ass point, David.
It's really ironic. There are any number of ways that happens. It's on the job. It's family. I mean, there's working class interracial marriage. That's that's pretty widespread, and so there's any number of ways, and and moving into neighborhoods. I just think that as with a lot of other things, white progressives are actually pretty backward.
And we're gonna stop there because we're at the top of the hour. Chris Larson, ADOS. All over the country.
All over the world.
All over the country. We will be moving our broadcast to Saturday mornings beginning next week. We will not be on Friday mornings anymore. We will be going to Saturday mornings beginning next week. This is our last Friday update. We're turning over a new leaf. So we'll be on Saturday morning. So Chris, of course, we always want to have you back every fourth Saturday now, as opposed to fourth Fridays.
I want to say real quick, I want to thank you both for an amazing year of this platform and an amazing openness to the movement and to the dialogue and the discourse. So that's to you, David, to Egberto, but also to you, Tamara. And I just want to thank you for your work and your commitment and your grind and your hustle. And thank you for stepping out in front, leading, right? Having the courage to run for office, having the courage to put it on the line, and put your money where your mouth is when it comes to ADOS, when it comes to Black people, and when it comes to this country. So thank you. And we are moving forward together. I am 100% confident in this movement. I'm 100% confident in our people. I think we have nothing but great things ahead of us, and I'm looking forward to it. So 2020 is going
to be our year. And thank you, Chris Larson, for bringing me into the movement. Like, you were the one that said, come on, this is where you belong. Because I was out here fighting in Georgia, trying to figure out what the hell is going on and why aren't Black people being represented in this whole process? Why are we always on the outside looking in? Why are we're undergirding the party, but then we get nothing out of it, and we're no respect. And I was out here all alone, and thank you, Chris Larson, for bringing me into the movement.
Yeah, no, thank you. And this is going to be the ADOS decade. We're going back into the roaring 20s. This belongs to us, okay? And we're going to get these reparations. All right, like, we are going to get them. All right, like, it's gonna happen. Sorry, that's my dog. Even he believes that.
And let me give a big old virtual hug to David. David, I want to thank you for being, the man that you are. I tell you all the time that I love you and I appreciate you, because you know what, as a white man stepping into these conversations boldly, you are a force to be reckoned with. And I am so glad. I feel so blessed. I know that's a word you don't really understand, but I feel blessed that you are a part of my life and a part of this movement with me. I love you, David.
Yeah, I love you too, Tamara, and Chris. I really appreciate. I in some ways I'm being dragged along, and
Right
No, you're
on.
not. You're running right here with us.
I struggle. What I'm trying to do is struggle with this whole thing about um, uh, how does this translate, and it's kind of an active translation. So I really appreciate it. I really appreciate having my thoughts, my assumptions, my everything else challenged, and keeping my brain flexible, brain plasticity, and thinking through things. So I really, really enjoy it and appreciate it.
Right
And
on.
it's the good struggle. It's the struggle.
Yeah, we're all in this together. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for our audience. It has been a phenomenal year. We are a year and a half into doing this. We did this all year long, me and David. Thank you, Chris, for jumping in every fourth Friday. And in 2020, we're gonna hit the gas. I'm gonna be running around the state of Georgia. I am a candidate for the United States Senate. This is a very winnable race. This is a golden opportunity. And ADOS will have its place, and we will have our moment in time. And this is gonna just make this country better. Our repair will help to repair this entire country. So this is not a selfish movement. This is a movement that is timely, and I'm just glad that this is our time, Chris and David. I love you guys.
Love you too, fam.
All right, see you. Power to the people. See you next Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye.